So welcome back to Spring River Homestead. Today we're going to talk about feeding rabbits. Now, I know this video has been a long time coming. Life has kind of gotten in the way, but let's kind of break it down. Now, if you've seen my original video about mixing feed, you know that we do not feed a complete feed ration and just a feed ration. I actually mix my own feed. I kind of talk in that video a little bit about why we do it. I do not give my recipe, and please don't send me a message asking for it. There's a bunch of different reasons for that. One, I encourage every rabbit owner to do their own research and make an informed decision about what they're going to feed their rabbits. But it also kind of depends on where you're at and what your base materials are. So the protein, fiber, and fat content will vary based on where your grains, your mineral, and your feed are made or grown. So this is part of why we don't give our feed recipe out, and we do encourage you to go ahead and do the math on your own. I know math sucks. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the main thoughts as far as feeding. Now, there are several different trains of thought when it comes to feeding your rabbits. The normal, most common one, of course, is I go down to the feed store and I buy a bag of rabbit feed and I bring it home. Nothing wrong with that. If that's the way you want to do it, that is absolutely okay. That's how most of us start. What you want to do is you want to get a really good quality feed. You're trying to avoid things like corn as a byproduct. Corn is not very good for rabbits. It does pack on the weight, but it tends to cause a lot of digestive issues. The other thing you're really looking for is a higher fiber count, and you don't want a fat content in a manufactured feed any higher than about a 3.5%. So make sure that you're looking at your labels before you buy your rabbit feed. Now, I know if you're in a very rural area, you really may not have any other options, but like one. There are a lot of manufacturers now that will drop ship, and depending on the number of rabbits you have, you may look at that. I would drop ship and pay a little bit more before I bought a crappy rabbit feed. You know, bad feed, too high in fat will cause breeding issues. Too low in fiber will cause digestive issues. Too low in protein or too high in protein can cause growth rate issues with your fryers. And really that's what this series is all about, is growing your own meat rabbits. So you do kind of want to keep an eye on it. What I believe you want to aim for is a 15 to 16% protein. You want about a 3.5 to 4% fat rate. And if you can get as high as 20% on your fiber, that's really what you want to aim for. Some of the commercial feeds available will have a 16% fiber, and I would run. There are ways to fix that. If that is all you can get, you can add grass hay, just any high quality grass hay, Timothy orchard, anything of that nature to up your fiber count. Just keep in mind that when you mix in grass hay, you tend to drop your protein count because it changes what the rabbits are eating. Okay, so beyond the traditional method of just feeding pellets, you've got a train of thought where some people feed grass hay and nothing but grass hay. This is some Timothy. It's a really good green grass hay. You can do this. You can. Especially in your grow-out fryers. Just keep in mind there, because the protein count in grass hay is typically pretty low, you're going to take a little bit longer to get them up to a good butcher size. If you're going to try this method with your adults, your breeding stock, make sure that you're buying the little mineral spools, the little brownish, pinkish, orange ones that you can get at any feed supply store, because now you're going to have a mineral issue. And if you don't keep your minerals just right in rabbits, you're going to have breeding problems. So if you're going to feed nothing but grass hay, that's fine. But keep in mind that you need to add the mineral and you need to add a chew block. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to pull Fuego out. He's a little Trianta that I recently took in. And we're going to go ahead and look at his teeth and talk about exactly why we don't do an all hay diet. Okay, so when we're talking about the dangers of feeding an all hay or all vegetable diet, let me show you exactly what happens when you don't give the rabbit something kind of hard to gnaw on to wear the teeth off. Now this is Fuego. This is a buck that we bought out of a bad situation, and he was on an exclusive hay diet. You can see where the teeth are unaligned because they have not been worn off. Now I've had Fuego here for a couple weeks. We've had him on some very hard feed and some chew blocks, trying to see if it's going to correct naturally before I take him to a good girlfriend of mine who can actually trim those off and get him fixed back up. He's making progress. They were much, much worse than this, but they are showing some signs of improvement. However, at this point, I think probably in this next week, we're going to take him in and have to go have those teeth trimmed off. Okay, so method number 3 is to do an all-natural diet. This is where you pretty much do fruits, vegetables, and hay. Keep in mind that in young rabbits, and I know I get a lot of this where people say, oh, well, grass and kale and things of this nature, this is what rabbits eat in the wild. You're right, they do. They absolutely eat all greens. However, domestic rabbits were not raised this way. The digestive system in domestic rabbits has changed a little bit from the wild rabbits. We've been domesticating these guys for hundreds and hundreds of years now, and we've taught them to the way we feed, especially in the last 100 years with the advent of commercialized rabbit ration. How the rabbits digest has changed a lot. So if you're going to add greens in, especially into your breeding herd, that's fine. Take it slow, a little bit here and there as you go. I'm not going to go through the whole list of natural feeds that you can and can't do. You can Google it. There's 400 different lists, and they all pretty much carry the same stuff. You can feed kales, lettuces, but not iceberg. You just want to watch the stuff that's high in certain acids that'll cause problems, like spinach. You can give fruits in moderation. You're trying to watch the sugar content there. We give a slice of banana once a week when we can get bananas. There's apparently a banana crisis right now and shortages, but about an inch of banana a week for a full-size 10-pound rabbit is fine as a treat. This is not something you want to do all the time. The sugar will actually cause problems. And like I mentioned, you can do the grass hay with some of these natural feeds, plantain, dandelion, or some other weeds that you can use. There's a variety of stuff. As I said, there's some huge lists online. I'll try and get a link and drop it in there for you so that you know kind of the ones that I use. We do give greens to our rabbits. We don't do it all the time because, quite frankly, with a herd the size of mine, I don't have time to do it. But I also, when you're giving greens and you're trying to grow for a meat rabbit, one of the things you struggle with is you don't necessarily know the fat, fiber, protein ratio of those greens, so it's really hard to have a good balanced diet with your rabbits, and really for maximum production you need a good balance. Okay, so the fourth method of feeding is a hybrid system. This is where you're mixing natural feeds, and this is really kind of what we do here. We do grass hay, especially if we've got a fat doe, and we do get fat does. We give grass hay to mamas that have babies because grass hay is really good at avoiding things like weaning enteritis and upset stomach, which you'll sometimes get in young rabbits. We give kale and chard and spinach and different things when the garden is going. We give raspberry leaf, whatever I've got going in the garden. And as you've seen in the other video, we also do a blend on our rabbit feed. So we're not feeding just a commercial feed. We're also feeding oats, barley, wheat, alfalfa pellets, and orchard grass pellets in addition. Okay, so that's a brief overview of feeding rabbits and how to feed rabbits. If you're feeding an all commercial feed, make sure that you're checking the label on the back that tells you what the recommendations are. Typically in a rabbit feed, it's going to be 1 cup of feed to about a 10-pound rabbit, and adjust from there based on how they do as far as weight. You can go up on feed if they're not holding condition. You can go down if they're getting a little too fat. Same thing goes if you're adding fruits and vegetables in with your rabbit pellets. Adjust your pellets based on how they're doing with the rest of it. So I hope that's answered some of the questions about feeding. Like I said, there's a bunch of different trains of thought. Now, like I said, I recommend a hybrid system, especially for a homesteader. We all tend to have gardens, and what better way to use excess produce than to help defray out your rabbit feeding costs. And I guess if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to you. I am showing in some major shows in the next couple weeks, so I'm going to be a little hit and miss, but if you just leave them in there, I will get to you as quick as I can. And happy homesteading.